When you think of weeds in your landscape, what's the first image that pops to mind? Well, it might be the dandelion. But right now, dandelions are among my favorite plants. I don't consider them weeds at all. Join me today as I discuss some of the benefits of having dandelions in the garden. Hi, I'm Gardener Scott, and for many of us, dandelions bring back childhood memories. This might have been the very first flower you picked and gave to your mother in a bouquet. And who doesn't love just taking a dandelion and blowing the seeds to the wind? This is a plant that children all over the world love, but as many of us turn into adults and grow expansive lawns, suddenly the dandelion becomes a weed that we have to eradicate. Well, I don't think it has to be that way. In fact, I'm actually encouraging dandelions in my landscape. The dandelion has been cultivated as a food crop for thousands of years. The ancient Greeks and Romans included dandelions in their diet. Every part of the plant is edible. You've probably heard of dandelion wine? Well, that comes from the flowers. You can pluck off the leaves and add them to a salad. You can dry the root and make a coffee substitute. It's often grown for its medicinal qualities. It's purported to relieve stomach distress. For many reasons, people have been growing dandelions for centuries. As people expanded across the globe, they often took the dandelion with them, which is why we find this plant all over the planet and why so many of us are familiar with it. So why is it that now we think of the dandelion as a weed? Well, the decline in the popularity of dandelions correlates perfectly with the increase in popularity of lawns. Grass lawns have spelled the demise of dandelions. We have this monocrop where we're growing all the same type of grass in a space. And by doing that, well, we're causing the soil to become deficient in some nutrients. And as we walk on the lawn and take advantage of why we have it in our front or backyard, we're compacting the soil. Well, the dandelion is one of the few plants that can grow in compacted, nutrient-deficient soil. So when you see a dandelion in your lawn, you should take advantage of its signal. It's telling you that the soil is not very good. And that's why so many people that have big expansive lawns have to rely on chemical fertilizers to keep the grass growing. And then when they see this signal plant popping up, they rely on chemical herbicides to kill it. Well, I think it's important to recognize what the dandelion is telling us. It's telling us that maybe that lawn isn't doing as well as we think it is. I'm allowing some dandelions to grow in my landscape because of its ability to grow in compacted, nutrient-deficient soil. I've had a soil test done on my garden and I know that it's lacking in many nutrients. And every time I try to dig in it, I know it's severely compacted. So as I'm expanding my garden areas and creating new areas for my perennials and my trees and the other plants, I allow the dandelions to grow because they're doing something very important for the soil. The dandelion has a thick tuberous taproot that goes deep into the soil. And as this root grows, it gets wider and it gets longer, going down to quite a depth. And then it takes some of the nutrients at the lower levels of the soil and brings it back up into the leaves. So every time I allow this dandelion or that dandelion to grow in my landscape, this long taproot is breaking apart the soil, decompacting it. And it's taking some of those nutrients that are deep down that other plants' roots won't reach, and bringing it up into the leaves. And so as these leaves brown and fall onto the soil through the course of the season, it's adding nutrients to the top of the soil. And then those nutrients from those leaves, as they decompose, can now be incorporated into the soil through the work of all the soil organisms. So by leaving some bare patches in areas of my garden that I haven't worked in yet, the dandelions are doing some of my work for me in decompacting the soil and improving the nutrient value. Dandelions are great at improving the calcium and iron levels of the soil around the plant. That's great. That's the kind of thing I want to do, because those are the kind of fertilizers that I might want to apply. But with the dandelion, I don't have to rely on nutrients. And when I do dig up the plant as I'm developing the beds, well, I can throw this entire plant in my compost pile. And all of the nutrients in the roots and the leaves are now added to my compost. A huge benefit of the dandelion is that it's one of the first flowers to emerge in spring. And I don't have that much in my garden that's flowering. This currant bush is about the only thing. So to attract pollinators to my garden, including the currant, I need as many flowers as I can get. Well, the dandelion is one of those flowers. Very early in the season, when dandelions may be the only flowering plant, the bees and other pollinators are relying on it for their food. At the beginning of the video, I commented on the childhood aspect of dandelions. And I've actually used this aspect to encourage kids to get excited about gardening. At the Galileo School Garden, when I'd have students out and we'd be working in the beds, when I'd see a dandelion, I would stop and I would get a group of students together and I would comment on the fact that every part of the plant is edible. And I'd pick a flower and I'd eat it. And without even asking them to, the kids would reach down, pluck up a dandelion, and start eating it. What better way to get kids excited about gardening and eating things that they're unfamiliar with than to use a dandelion as an example? Because, like all of us, we see them everywhere, especially in the landscape outside our front and back door. So the dandelion, not only a beautiful flower, but it's one of those that kids just relate to. And it's something that they actually like to eat. Now, I have to point out that you should not be eating a dandelion that has been treated with an herbicide or pesticide or fertilizer. The reason that I can do it is because none of my plants are treated. So I know all of my dandelions are completely natural. And I can harvest them at any stage of their life and experiment with the flavor and how I choose to use them in a diet or, again, as a compost material. As I continue to expand my landscape with new gardening areas, like this one behind me that will be a perennial flower garden to attract beneficial insects and pollinators, well, I'm always looking for new plants. Plants that can handle my poor soil and also survive in my harsh gardening climate. Well, I know dandelions fit that bill. They're all around us. They're growing naturally. So if I encourage their growth, I'm going to have more dandelions and more of their benefits. And along those lines, I bought some pink dandelion seeds. So the yellow ones will appear naturally, and I'll intentionally grow some pink dandelions in a few of the bed areas behind me. They're going to improve the soil. They're going to offer food to pollinators like bees. They may offer me food as I expand my diet, and they're going to get my grandkids excited every time they come out to the garden, especially when they find out that they can pick pink dandelions and give a bouquet to their mother. This is a wonderful plant. If you benefited from this video and learned something about the dandelion, well, I encourage that you share this video with others who might also appreciate it. And also consider watching one of these Gardener Scott videos next. I'm Gardener Scott. Enjoy gardening.